Hi there. Thank you for clicking on this video. This is the practice set for absolute value equations. Please like and subscribe for more math content, ask a question or drop a comment to engage, and check out the other resources on the channel. If you're not finding what you're looking for, drop a comment and ask for it. I can either share the video that I have if you can't find it, or I can work on creating some content that will be helpful for you. That is why I do this. As always, pause the video to work these problems on your own and then come back to check your work. Please remember, for numbers 1 through 4, you are not actually solving them. You are just stating how many solutions the equation has. Right, so I put these ones all on one slide together because we're not going to work these problems all the way through. We just are going to work them far enough to figure out how many solutions the equation has. So we're going to start by throwing our number line up there. Okay, I'll put 0 in the middle, and that number line may not be to scale. So for this first one, we have the absolute value of x minus 3 equals -2. And we want to remember that absolute value means the distance from 0. And it does not matter which direction. I said in the lesson video, you think about your fitness watch that tracks how many steps you've got. It does not matter which direction you're going. Okay, you can pace back and forth. It's going to keep counting those steps. And so there's no way for your step counter to give you negative steps. Okay, that's not a thing. And in the same way, there's no way that the distance from 0 of x minus 3 or the absolute value of x minus 3 could be -2. And so for this first one, you would want to answer no solutions. And I do use SOLNS as an abbreviation for the word solutions. So that first one does not have any. The next one. Okay, so this is multiplication right here. And I did mention in the video, we do not want to distribute through the absolute value, because if we're distributing a negative, we are going to have issues. It's going to end up doing away with the negative. So the way we want to handle that is by division. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Causing that to cancel out. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And so on our number line, we now have the distance from 0 is 3. And there are two numbers that have a distance from 0 of 3. Therefore, there will be 2 solutions. Okay, we don't have to go through the rest of it where we find what those solutions are. Just there are 2. Next one. Ooh. This one gets a little messier. So we have -3 times the absolute value of x plus 5 plus 6 equals 3. And that negative, might give us pause. And that is a classic instance where you do not want to multiply through, because as soon as you multiply that negative into the absolute value is going to operate that negative away. So we're going to start this one by subtracting the 6. Okay, so we subtract 6 from both sides. And 6 minus 6 is 0, 3 minus 6, or 3 plus -6 is -3. Now you might be tempted to say, oh, but absolute value can't be negative. We're back to this where there's no solutions, but there is a negative here. And so we remember that that is multiplication. So we can divide by -3. -3 divided by -3 is +1. And we have that over there. And now it actually looks like we do have solutions. So the distance from 0 is 1. And so that means we could go 1 unit away or 1 step away in either direction. And there will be 2 solutions, because we can go left and we can go right. And for the last one, we have the absolute value of x minus 2 minus 4 equals -4. Well, as we learned in the lesson, the distance from 0 and then take away 4 from that distance, and we end up with a -4. Like, we need to deal with the -4. So we'll do that by adding to both sides. So we get the absolute value of x minus 2. -4 plus 4 is 0. And that is going to land us right on the 0, which is fine. Just like the distance of x minus 2 from 0 is 0, and there's only one number that has a distance from 0 of 0, and that is 0, meaning we have one solution for that particular equation. Most of your absolute value equations will have 2 solutions, except maybe when you're just learning it and teachers want to make sure that they've covered all the different things that can happen. But once you exit your study of absolute value equations, typically most of them will have 2 solutions. All right, so now we get into the ones where we need to actually solve them. So let's take a look at number 5. Now, you can go straight to this. X plus 7 is -10, or x plus 7 is 10. Make sure when you do that step that you are removing the absolute values, because that step of thinking about going to the left and going to the right is the doing of the absolute value. Now, if that was a little bit much, and what I don't want any of my students to do, nor anybody watching my videos on YouTube, is to try to memorize, I flipped the sign, I set up 2 equations. We want to know why that step is what it is. So if that felt like it was moving a tiny bit too fast for you, what I want you to do is to go back to the number line and think, the distance from 0 is 10. Okay, distance from 0 is 10. I could go 10 to the right, and so x plus 7 might be 10 to the right, or I could go 10 to the left, so the x plus 7 could be 10 in that direction, and that's going to help you visualize, okay, distance from 0, and it's the x plus 7 that has that distance from 0, and then you can go from there to the 2 equations. Make sure that you know why. You can draw a picture of it on the number line, that if your teacher asks, like, where did these equations come from? Not just did you get the equations, but how do you reason your way to those equations? We go back to the definition. It's the distance from 0. From here, we would simply subtract 7. So 7 minus 7 is 0. -10 minus 7 is -17. And we do the same over here, subtract 7, and we get x is equal to 3. Number 6. Well, this looks like fun. Okay. So we've got a lot going on here. We have -2 times some kind of distance, and then add 4 to that. And when we get that, we get -2. Okay. We need to isolate that absolute value first. So this multiplying the distance and adding to this is confusing. Always undo this first. Okay. So we're going to deal with that 4 first by subtracting 4. You can do the division first, but I do not recommend it because it can introduce fractions earlier than you want to have fractions. 4 minus 4 is 0. -2 minus 4, or -2 plus -4 is -6. And before you say, absolute value can't be negative, no solution, remember that you are multiplying by a negative out here, and we are not going to multiply that through. We are going to divide. -2 divided by -2 is +1. -6 divided by -2 is +3. If you need to, do a number line. The distance from 0 of x minus 3, or x minus 3 has a distance from 0 of 3. So where could that be? That could be 3 to the right or 3 to the left, and it would be x minus 3 that has that distance. And so x minus 3 could be -3, or x minus 3 could be +3. And in both of these, we are going to add 3 to both sides. -3 plus 3 is 0. And 3 plus 3 is 6. Do not let the fact that you get x equals 0 out for one of your answers, like, make you anxious. 0 is a number, and if you plug it in, like, you might get what you want from this. So it can be a solution. Don't panic. And notice what I did there with the number line here, just doing a quick number line to help with that visual, to bridge the gap between the equation with the absolute value in it and the step where we are doing the absolute value and removing that operator from the equation. Okay. Ah, fractions. Yes, needed that today. All right. So what do we have going on here? Okay, so we have the 1/2 x in the absolute value there. Like, thrilled with that? I mean, not really thrilled with that, but we're going to cross each bridge as we come to it. The first thing, though, that we need to deal with is the fact that we have 3 multiplying, and I'm really not thrilled with multiplying that through, because now I've got to multiply with the fraction, which is just going to give me a different fraction. Let's go ahead and divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Leaving me with 1/2 x plus 1, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. And then this is what I was mentioning on the last one, just doing a really quick number line. The distance from 0 is 5. It could be 5 to the right or 5 to the left. What has that distance? Well, 1/2 x plus 1. And so those are our 2 equations. 1/2 x plus 1 could be equal to -5, and 1/2 x plus 1 could be equal to +5. Subtracting 1, 1/2 x, 1 minus 1 is 0, -5 minus 1, or -5 plus -1 is -6. And then for this, you could divide by 1/2. This is where it might be beneficial to remember the definition of division. The definition of division is multiplying by the reciprocal. So if you wanted to like divide by 1/2, I mean, you can, but watch, I'm going to come up here, like just in that space. -6 divided by 1/2. Division means to multiply by the reciprocal. So that would be times, and then you'd flip the 1/2 over and get like 2/1, or just -6 times 2. So that's going to be a 12. Instead of writing it that way, where you're dividing by the fraction, you might find that people like you better if you just do multiply by 2. Okay. And then you can see it this way: 2 times 1/2. Well, what is 2 times 1/2? That's 1, leaving you with 1x. And there's the -12. Now, there's really not like a right, wrong way to do that. Just, make sure that your arithmetic and your reasoning are sound. Over here, same deal. We're going to subtract the 1. We get 1/2 x is equal to 4. And like I said, people will like you better if you just say times 2. But if you really want to say divide by 1/2, you can. But it's ugly. Okay. And we get x is equal to 8, because 4 times 2 is 8. And you can go again through that and plug in those numbers, and plug in the -12, plug in the 8 back to the original equation, and double check and make sure that they work, and they do. All right, number 8. So we have the absolute value of x plus 5 is equal to 3. We have a distance, and when we add something to that distance, we add 5 to that distance, we end up with 3. That's weird, so let's go ahead and subtract that 5. And we get the distance from 0 of x plus 5, or x plus 5 has a distance from 0 of -2. We know that a distance is not -2. Remember, your step tracker, okay, is not finding a way to subtract numbers. So this is a no solutions problem. No solution on that one. And if you start plugging in some numbers, like just for funsies, because why not? Like pick a random number. So let's say I'm going to pick x is equal to -1. Okay. And so you plug in -1 plus 5 absolute value of -1 plus 5. Okay. And here we've got what is -1 plus 5 is 4. And then the absolute value of 4, and we end up with 9 equals 3, which is clearly not true. And what you notice is whatever you plug in here, okay, when you take the absolute value of it, you're going to end up with a positive number, or potentially 0. Okay, if you pick a -5. You can get a 0 here, but whatever that number is, it's going to be 0 or greater. If you take a number that's 0 or greater and add 5 to it, you cannot land at a 3. I cannot land at a 3. And so there's nothing that you can plug in that will work. Last one of these is number 9. So we have 4 times the absolute value of x minus 1 plus 3 is equal to 3. Again, you could start by dividing, but here's what you've got to do if you start by dividing, is you got to divide this and this and this. And what that's going to do is it'll get the x minus 1, but now you've got fractions, okay? You can deal with that, but I don't know why you'd want to. So that is why teachers discourage students from doing that. It's not because it's impossible, but a lot of students will forget to divide everything. So they'll only divide one part, and you can also introduce the fractions just early. All right, so we're going to start with subtracting the 3. So we get 4 times the absolute value of x minus 1. 3 minus 3 is 0, and 3 minus 3 is 0. So now we have 4 times some kind of distance has to equal 0. You could actually reason this through a couple different ways. 4 times what equals 0? Well, there's only one number that if you multiply by 4 to get a 0, it's got to be a 0. Therefore, the absolute value of x minus 1 has to equal 0. Or you could carry out the operation here. So you divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 0 divided by 4 is 0. And there's only one number, okay, that when you take the absolute value, you get a 0, and that's 0. So x minus 1 has to equal 0. We add 1 to both sides, and we get x is equal to 1. And this is one of the examples that has just one solution. Number 10, last but not least, is x equals 6 a solution for that lovely equation? What do you think is the fastest way to do this? So you've got some options, and this problem is angling at potentially a multiple choice question, or any situation where when you're looking at the equation looks kind of awful. Now, debatable how awful this is, but I don't think it's like too terrible, but anyway, you might not want to do it. So you can disagree, but I think the fastest way to do this is probably plug in the 6 for the x and see if you get something that makes the equation true. So we're going to plug in 6 right there for the x, and then just use our order of operations, okay? So in my grouping symbol, 2 times 6 is 12, okay? And then 12 plus 3 is 15. The absolute value of 15 is 15. And here's where you can maybe see what is happening. If you have a negative times a positive, okay, so here's what I'm looking at. Negative times a positive is going to give me a negative, and a negative number minus 5 is not going to be -3. Okay, so if you have something that's already negative and you take away 5 more, okay, it's not going to be -3. Here's what it looks like. Okay, so here's the 0, here's 1, 2, 3, here's the -3, here's the -5. If you have any number that is already negative, okay, or even 0, and you subtract 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you cannot land at the -3. That's not even going to be possible. So this is not a solution. So no solution, or I guess the answer is that a solution? No. So that's one way you could do it. You could also opt to just start solving it, okay, which might be faster. So we've got that, and we say, okay, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And so I get this. -3 plus 5 is 2. And then remember, dividing by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by 2. And so I can do, except in this case, we're going to multiply by -2 because it was a negative. So we have 2 times -2. That is equal to 1. So we have this, and 2 times -2 is -4. And now we have that negative, which is going to tell us no solution. The distance can't be. So which one is easier? That is up to you, whether you want to plug it in. And if the question is a yes, no question, or it's a multiple choice question where you just need to like eliminate an answer choice from the options that you're going to pick, you don't have to do the problem all the way out. You only need to do it far enough so that you are able to answer yes or no. Okay, so I think that's it. It says slide 6 of 7. So don't forget to like and subscribe for more math help. Drop a comment or question to engage, and check out the many other videos, practice sets, and playlists on the channel. If you don't see what you're looking for, drop a comment and ask, and I will see what I can do to point you in the right direction or create some content for you, because helping students with math is indeed what I like to do. Hope to see you in a future video.